because the very second I'm about to start recording, the trash truck turns up. Hi and welcome back. This video is going to be a little bit different. It was one that was requested specifically, and it's going to be a get to know me kind of moment. So if you've only watched maybe a few or a handful of my vlogs, then you've probably gotten a little bit of a handle on the kind of things that I concentrate on in my life, whether it's my kids, dieting, general healthcare, looking after myself, and just the everyday sort of things that go on in my life. But that doesn't necessarily tell you every last little detail about me. So we're going to fill out a little bit of the gaps that might be missing, that I probably haven't covered at all. There might be some very, very new things in this video. I like to think that I am very open and honest about the good things in my life and the not so great things in my life, but I am real and realistic about everything. Everything that you have seen in a vlog is 100% authentic and is me and how I live my life. So let's rewind and start from the beginning. I was born in Oxford in February of 1987. At the time, my parents were married, and shortly after I was born, they went on to have my brother, their son, and blood-wise, he is my only, what I consider and call my full-blooded brother. We'll get on to the rest of why that is very soon. Initially, when I was born, we lived with my grandparents, my grandmother specifically, and then a little while after we actually moved into a place of our own, me, my brother and my mum and dad. And whilst things were not great, I would say that I had a completely normal childhood. Until my parents started having marital problems. And to cut a long story kind of short, because I don't feel all that comfortable discussing some specific details, something happened where my mother wasn't happy in the relationship, and we ended up moving to Birmingham when I was, I want to say about 7, I think is pretty accurate. We all know how my memory is, so don't count me on that, okay? But yeah, I was 7 when we moved to Birmingham, and unfortunately things didn't really get any better for them marriage-wise. We were there for a couple of years, and we moved back literally on my 9th birthday. We moved back to Oxford. My time in Birmingham was really good. My dad has a sibling there and she has family there, so it's not like we were just moving to another place completely randomly. And I actually really enjoyed living there. And it did come as a little bit of a shock when suddenly we're going back home. It's literally what what my dad called it. We are going back home. So a couple of years later, we moved back to Oxford, like I said, and things went downhill. From there, my mother made friends with another mum, and things started getting a little bit out of control. It's a little bit difficult for me to talk about. I don't even know why. I don't know why this is coming up. Okay, we're gonna get a handle on it. And she was unhappy still. Obviously they had tried really hard to repair some of the damage. Obviously coming back to Oxford, where all of 98% of my family was living, was supposed to get things back on track. They tried this other thing and now they were trying what they had done before, and it was unsuccessful. My mother began taking an interest in another man. I don't feel any animosity towards her for that. I wish that it could have been dealt with differently, but things happen, and ultimately my parents ended up getting divorced. Did it have a detrimental effect on me? Yeah, it did. It did for a long time. At least maybe the next 7 or so years. The man that my mother went on to therefore marry had 3 daughters and 2 sons of his own, so I was gaining like this whole family like out of nowhere. It was an interesting time. It was a fun time, not gonna lie. Looking back on it now, it's kind of hard to explain, because obviously I feel 2 different ways about it simultaneously, if that makes sense. Like, of course, there's the half of me that was completely heartbroken for my dad. I saw him going through things that kids don't really need to see or know about, and I'm not, bad-mouthing him in any way at all, because decisions were made on both sides. So yeah, I felt bad for what was happening to my dad, but at the same time, when I was going to stay with my mum and I had suddenly gained 3 stepsisters who I absolutely adored. Yeah, we were just having the best time together. And I was going into middle school right about then. I've never had like a really bad time at school, and I've never had a really great time at school. It's always been that kind of middle area for me. Like I'm just I don't know, normal. You know, there's nothing like super special about me. And even though I did experience bullying throughout the time that I was at school, not like full on bullying, but you know, just, you know, kids being mean, because that's what kids do. Kids are mean for no reason. But yeah, I was going into middle school at this time. Life was starting to take a new form, if you will. I was happy. I was happy in my home life and making new friends in my middle school. And yeah, things just went on from there. And suddenly I found myself in high school, which I didn't ever complete. And I'm going to get into that right now. In what was supposed to be my final year of high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't feel exactly very supported. Yeah, supported either at school or at home during this time. I know that my mum specifically was trying to push me into staying on, but that's not what happened. So one day when I was walking to school, which wasn't that far away, it was like 15-20 minutes, and it was a walk that I'd had many times, both going and coming home. On the trail of going to school, I came into contact with a boy who was in the same year as me. Somebody who wasn't necessarily like what I would consider a friend, but somebody who was an acquaintance-ish kind of thing. And we were talking. We were talking and just walking, and suddenly, out of nowhere, he decided to grab me. On my chest, and then lower than that. And the shock of it completely threw me. I know that they say when stuff like that happens, it's always somebody that you know. And even though I didn't really know this person all that well, he wasn't the sort of person that I would ever think that would try to grope somebody like that. And he said to me, he said, "How do you feel about that? Would you tell someone if somebody did this to you?" I was completely like freaking out in my head that this had happened. This had happened to me, because you never expect something like that to happen to you. And even though it is something that is minor in the grand scheme of things. The shock of it was beyond detrimental to me. And I did go to school, but I left and went straight back home and explained to my mum with absolute shame that something like this had happened. And I had to make a statement to the police, and then at a later date I had to do a video recording statement explaining what had happened, what I'd been wearing, what we'd been talking about. You know, was there any kind of flirtatious intent, which no, that absolutely was not. It was a completely innocent conversation. We had been talking about, it was RE, because I'm pretty sure we were going to have RE or something, and we happened to be in the same class, and yeah, it was just something along the lines of that we had been talking about when I was suddenly groped. The feeling that I got from Oxford Police is definitely something akin to victim blaming. It felt to me like they were looking for some kind of reason for me to have initiated this kind of contact, which again, no, I absolutely did not. It was just one of those completely out of the blue things that somebody felt that they had the right to touch me. But following that, I really didn't want to go to school. Like, I was having kind of, I don't want to say emotional issues, but there was definitely some things that were going on at home. My dad had gotten into a new relationship with a woman who was literally just 10 years older than me. She went on to be my stepmother and got pregnant with my brother whilst I was still in high school. Well, I say still in high school, but it was coming to a time where I wasn't interested in being in school at all, and would much rather go and hang out at my dad's house with his new wife and my little brother. They were doing fun stuff, and as you probably may or may not know, I really love and adore children, which is why I've got 2 of my own. I spend a lot of time looking after other people's kiddywinks throughout the years up until I had my own, and then it was like, well, I've got my own now, so they're my problem, and this is what is my main priority. But let's rewind a sec. I didn't want to go back to school, so I didn't. And nobody really, neither my mum nor my dad or any kind of outside resources like at school, etc. We didn't have things like a school guidance counsellor or anything like that to try and find some sort of medium ground to get me back into school. Nothing like that ever happened. But I did, around the same time, begin experiencing thoughts of unaliving and harming of me. I don't know how much exactly I'm allowed to say in terms of that, but yeah, things did get quite dark for me post this incident. I didn't want to be here anymore. I began not sleeping at all and started having very bad insomnia, which probably didn't help, as it usually doesn't. And things were just, yeah, they were getting really friggin' dark for me for a while, and there didn't really seem to be any kind of way out for me. Once school had officially finished for me and I was no longer going, that summer after I had turned 16, I began working in a cafe, and yeah, absolutely adored it there. There was university boys there, and it was, oh my god, I loved it. there was a Chinese student there who I had, like, oh my god, like everything for, but I was so shy I couldn't talk to him, even though we were like really close. We had gotten close like really fast. And I was there for about 18 months. So yeah, until I was about 17 and a half, maybe like the next summer or so, I finished working there. But in the meantime, that same year that I finished high school, I had began, like probably everybody else around the same time, was getting super excited about, going online, meeting people, creating spaces, that kind of thing. And I went into a Marilyn Manson website. It wasn't his official one, but it was a fan site where you could talk to other fans. And I clicked on the name that got my attention, and it just so happened to be the user, which is now the father of both of my children, and we have been together ever since. I wouldn't say we got together right then and there. It took about the space of a year for us to get to know each other and get to like really like each other. But yeah, within that year we decided, well, I was drunk and I said something particularly a little bit too raunchy for YouTube to be talking about, but it was basically along the lines of, I would like to get with you, kind of thing. Oh my gosh, I'm never gonna live that down. And yeah, we've basically been together for the past 20 years. He at the time was going on, what is it called here? Yeah, so he was basically staying on at school, and he was staying on to stay in school, high school. I was working, and then Andrew obviously went on to university. and we were having a long distance relationship. I would really say that my weight began to become an issue around the age of about 18-ish, 17, 18, give or take, here or there. I switched jobs and began working as an assistant manager for a very small bakery company, and was gaining weight really, really fast. Probably because I was eating a lot of the stuff that was in the gosh darn bakery, and it did me no good. But that was around the same time when I began to notice things happening to my body that lean into polycystic ovarian syndrome. Now, I didn't know if I had this condition or not. I didn't really know anything of what was happening to me initially until I started to look into it. I didn't officially get any kind of tests done for at least maybe 3 to 4 years, but my weight was suddenly huge. I wouldn't say around that time was my peak weight. I would probably say around the time of COVID, when everybody was in lockdown and staying in, is definitely my peak weight, if you will. Jump forward a little bit to around the time I was about 20, 21-ish. I began having some really bad control issues, specifically around eating, or rather not eating, specifically. This took a full-on hold of me with a full throttle, and I started losing weight, to the point where my mother was asking me if I'm okay. She's like, you don't look well. And I was covering up the fact that I was not being so good to myself. I wouldn't say that I was getting into dangerous territory, but clearly people around me were feeling that way. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Mostly it was because I was very unhappy, specifically around having this long distance relationship with Andrew. I wanted him to come down here, but he had already enrolled in Dundee University, and our relationship wasn't great for a while. I mean, I loved him, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue going on with this, just because I knew that he was going to be at uni for at least 4 years, and I didn't want to have to deal with a long distance relationship for that amount of time. But eventually I would fall pregnant with Regina, and that was in December of 2009. Regina was born October of 2010. And in January of 2011, we ended up moving, Regina and I, that is, because Andrew was already, living up here. But he did come down for, leading up to Regina's birth. My dad was having marital problems with his wife. This was causing issues with my dad and I's relationship. I felt really awful having to leave my youngest brother and sister behind. It was a difficult mixed emotion time, and I don't regret moving up here, but I wish that we could have moved up here without there being this added strain onto other familial relationships. I wish I could have left with, you know, having a normal relationship with both my parents. At the time, I was no longer speaking to my mother, and I felt kind of alone. I was moving up to Scotland. A lot of Andrew's family are spread out. Nobody's really close-knit. On his dad's side, his mum's side is a different story entirely. There's, you know, brothers and sisters that don't talk to each other, and this one doesn't talk to that one, and I don't have time to deal with all that. I've got my own issues. So it was just us, and we moved in with his dad in Kirkcaldy. And then his dad was diagnosed with liver issues, and he was on the waiting list for a transplant. Because of where we were living was no longer suitable for him. We had to go our separate ways again. So Andrew and I decided to move closer to his university, whilst Andrew's dad went on to live in a bungalow, which was of course better suited to him. He wasn't able to be walking up and down stairs, etc. In January of 2013 is when I had my little honey bun. Absolutely no issues whatsoever. With both of my children, I had to be induced. With both of them did not want to come out, and I was doing the things that I had long thought impossible for me, like was never going to happen. Due to my PCOS, from the bottom of my heart, I really do feel so absolutely awful for any person who wants to have kids but can't. I honestly can't imagine what that would be like. I have some idea because I was told that it would be very, very difficult for me to fall pregnant. So the fact that I had done this twice to me is just an absolute miracle, and which is why, you know, I hold my kids very, very close to me, for that reason alone, because I never thought that I would ever have them. And I was, you know, over the moon. I had one girl and one boy, and yeah, things were looking really good for a little while. Andrew finished his PhD in 2017. He was able to secure a yearly temporary position, and what I mean by that is that he was able to work through the semesters of, you know, university timetable, but that left like a little bit of a gap between May until September time. So on and off, we were having to claim things like benefits, for example, and it was the worst. I absolutely detest the benefit system with a passion, specifically for things like job seekers, because he had such a specific niche of being a philosophy doctorate. So things were a little bit here and there for a good while, and he was actually working 2 jobs at one point. He was working part-time for the university, and then for the other time he was working for a Kiddywinks school accessories kind of store. So he was doing that, and he was also working in the summer for a short course for people who were looking to go into university but not exactly having the best grades coming out of high school. So it was kind of like a go-between to see if they were actually committed enough to take the next step. So yeah, we were like all over the place in terms of what was happening with us financially. So yeah, we're coming up to probably a year before COVID hit. Whilst I would say our relationship is more strained now, there have definitely been things that have happened which haven't helped the situation. Nothing to do with infidelity or anything like that, but there's definitely been some butting of heads just because of our situation that we find ourselves in. So moving on to the dreaded year of our COVID, 2020. I touched on this pretty recently, but I'm gonna go into it a little bit more and round out exactly what it was that happened that led to Andrew's mental breakdown, and also led to him having his autism diagnosed. As you're probably aware, this is a touchy subject for me. Okay. So when lockdown was happening, we were staying indoors, of course. Everybody, literally everybody everywhere was staying indoors. But around July of 2020 is when things really started to change in the area where I live. It began with a lot of footfall happening on the stairwell where we live. It was all hours of the day, a lot, and it was happening more and more, and it was becoming very, very noticeable that something was going on. The person that was living above us was the person who was supposed to be living above us, should I say, had 2 family members move in to that specific flat because he was going away to prison, apparently. And one of the people living there didn't seem all that, you know, for lack of better terms, they didn't have a lot of stuff going on, like upstairs wise. And it seemed to me like the other person that was living there was a carer for this guy. We began experiencing loud music a lot. It was annoying. Sometimes this would go on for 72 hours straight. Really, really loud music coming from above, both in my living room area, and sometimes you could hear it like it was literally playing full blown, speakers face to the floor from above in my bedroom. I began to feel really unsafe. I was worried. I knew that something was off. I didn't know what. But you know, you can put like 2 and 2 together. You don't have to be a genius to know that something highly suspect is going on. Things really came to, I don't want to say that they came to like a head, but they were starting to come to a very unpleasant point in September of 2020, when Andrew woke me up a little bit after 3 o'clock in the morning. And even as I'm saying it now is maybe why maybe it's why I have so much trouble staying asleep. I'm not going to try and focus too much on that though. But he woke me up in a complete, genuine, real panic and said to me that somebody was planning to kill him, that he had heard this for himself, that somebody was planning to kill him. I was completely in a panic. I was like, what the hell is going on? When did you hear this? Where? Like, why were you even awake? He hadn't slept for days. And yeah, we were literally free falling down into this, what felt like a black hole, because I had no clue what was going on. I couldn't tell reality from what was actually happening. And he ended up being taken by police to a mental unit. And they were so casual about it. And he told me when he came back that he didn't want to come back. I was so confused and angry. didn't know what was happening. I didn't have any family or support up here. It's not like I could just call my dad and say, come and get me. Even though I really did want to. I wanted to pack up things that we needed and just go back to Oxford. I wanted that. So a month later, so this was October 2020, the people who were living upstairs had moved out, but they left their stereo pumping for 72 hours straight, and I just had enough, and I called the police, and they ended up coming like 2 in the morning, and they managed to somehow get a hold of, by miracle, if you've been watching some of my vlogs from like very early on, then you'll know how difficult it was to get a hold of the landlord from above. But somehow they managed to do it. The police managed to get hold of him, and he came over and explained that the people who were living there had basically done a runner. They'd stopped paying rent and just moved out on a whim, which was such a friggin' relief for me. I was so glad that they were gone, so glad. And it was shortly after that the person across the way had also, you know, moved out. The fact that they were both gone, that both of these dealers were gone, it was such a relief. As I previously stated before, the police did do some kind of follow-up, if you can call it that, where they came and spoke to me both at the door just to ask about if any more kind of footfall had been happening, and they actually turned up at my door on Regina's birthday. It was a community officer who just, you know, wanted a little bit of an update about things that had been happening, and I explained to him that the person above, people above, had moved out. I will never not feel exceedingly bitter about how the police treated us during this time. I explained on a number of occasions that something was going on, and they just made it sound like we needed to get out more. Which is still true, we do need to get out more. But the fact that they came to my door a couple of times post what I've just explained about the police turning up on Regina's birthday. They came like the following summer, I'm pretty sure it was, and then maybe a little bit later in that year, asking about suspicious activity happening within the building. they were looking for somebody specific, and even asked to see Andrew to make like an identity, you know, comparison. And no, he's their literal words were, no, he's not who we're looking for. I'm like, yeah, no. This dug up many complex issues that mostly I have been able to overcome, but that hasn't been the case for Andrew at all, as I've previously touched on. He was later diagnosed with being autistic, but prior to that, and even now, he's on a hecton of antipsychosis medications, anti-anxiety medication, antidepressants, which, to be fair to him, is only a very recent thing. Meanwhile, I was eating my feelings, eating to just feel something that wasn't a worry, that wasn't a thought about what could happen, or a worry about what's going to happen with Andrew. I wanted to leave here, I did, but financially we just couldn't do it, and we're still not in the greatest of positions to do that. And it felt to me then more, it felt to me more than it does now, but it felt like being in a prison. You know, there's only so much that you can really handle before you start to shut down, and just to put up walls, disassociate, not feel anything. And then come June 2023, I was watching a comedian by the name of Isaac Butterfield, and he was talking about a video of I'm pretty sure it was an Australian obese lady who was starting to take her health really, really seriously. And he said, you know, take care, his I can't remember his exact words verbatim, but the message is take care of yourself, not only for you, but for your children and for your family and for your partner. And something about that just really hit home for me. And it was kind of like the slap in the face that I needed. It was the kind slap in the face that I really did need in order to come to the realization that, you know, maybe being 19.5 stone isn't good for me. and if I want to be around for my little honey bun so that he's got his mummy for as long as possible, and you know, Regina has her mum for as long as possible, she's gonna have me as support for as long as I'm around. You know, there's absolutely nothing in this world that would ever deter me from, you know, loving my kids without absolute full force. But yeah, it was like, oh my god, what am I doing to myself? I need to get my stuff together. You know, to phrase it in the nicest way possible, I really do and did need to get my stuff together and, you know, start taking care of myself. Andrew's dad had just died. I'd found out that my mum was having these rare illnesses and she wasn't doing so well health-wise, and some of these things are friggin' hereditary, and I'm just like, oh god, you know, I need to not be doing what I'm doing. We are stopping this right now and we are going on a health journey. So I began watching other YouTubers who make a lot of content revolving around their own commentary about weight loss, the obesity issue that is literally growing, and there's really no pun intended for that one. And these videos just put me completely on the right track. If you don't know, these YouTubers are specifically the ones who have had the most effect on me and putting me where I need to be going, facing the right way at least, is Not David, and that's Dayvit. Shakara Transformations is another one, and The Cynical Dude. They are all YouTubers who have helped me greatly to realise the damage that I was doing to myself, about the potential illnesses that can possibly arise from being obese, because I was in the obese category. I think I'm still kind of on the edge of obesity and overweight-ish, give or take. I don't know, I've not stepped on the scale. But that's where I currently find myself. But for me, these YouTubers were absolutely everything in allowing me to, like, it was like pressing a light switch. It was allowing me to realise the things that I was doing to myself was not healthy. I needed to be paying more attention to what I was putting in my body. I need to be exercising. I need to be thinking about other people, not just myself. And if I wanted to be around for a longer time, then I was going to have to correct these things. My highest weight, to my knowledge, is somewhere in the 21 stone-ish area, give or take. I didn't have a scale when COVID was happening, or post-COVID, you know, when we were finally freed of lockdowns. I didn't have a scale. So I eventually got one I want to say around probably late 2021. And then I stopped trusting it kind of recently-ish and got a new one. But yeah, to the best of my knowledge, my highest weight is somewhere in the 21, 22-ish range. At the time of beginning this health journey that I am on, when I initially started it, I was 19 stone 8 pounds, so just over, like 19 and a half stone, if you will. And I'm now down at 14 stone ish, maybe. I don't know. I've not stepped on a scale, like I said. I need to, that would be great. Yeah, maybe we'll have a scale moment very, very soon. I decided to begin vlogging and documenting my successes and unsuccesses here on YouTube for a couple of reasons, maybe more than a couple. But the first one was, it was a way in which I would be able to hold myself accountable. Is probably one of the main reasons. And secondary to that is I didn't have anything. I didn't really have anything to lose by doing it. Probably like a little side reason that I wanted to start doing vlogging and YouTubing and documenting things that I'm eating and things in my life is because, well, I would like the opportunity to be able to be present for my children, if that makes sense. Specifically because of Andrew's mental health issues. It's not that I don't feel safe with him looking after them. Please don't misunderstand that. It's just that I know what his threshold is for like coping. He doesn't deal with you know, having to deal with lots of separate issues all at the same time. Something that I can kind of relate to, but obviously there's different levels of the pressure that we both feel. I can handle it for the most part, but I know that too much on him is gonna be too much on him, and it's not gonna benefit him in any way. So probably with his mental state, and never say never, because, you know, things can change, but with his mental state and my constant worry about his well-being, things are not going to be normal ever again, not in the same sense as other people and other families. I've potentially got 2 autistic children, an autistic partner, who, as I love him to death, I do, but where we were 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I realised that there's never going to be a return to that. The chances of it are so slim, they may as well not exist. I hope that this little get to know me wasn't too bleak. I honestly don't. That's not really the message that I want you to take away from it. The message that I would like for you to take away from it is that nothing is set in stone, and don't stop believing in your ability to be and go and do exactly what you set out to do. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. If there's a specific question that you would like for me to answer, you know, it can be something that's happened in this video, something that's happened in a previous vlog, you know, any kind of comments, questions, suggestions, they are always welcome. And you can follow me over on Instagram if you like. I'll put it right here so you know where I am. And yeah, don't be shy. Come over and say hi. I hope that you found something of enjoyment from this video. If you didn't, also let me know why. It's because it's so damn bleak. If I left anything out that you specifically wanted to know, yeah, leave that. Absolutely. And I'll try and get back to you in a future video, obviously. And thank you so much for watching. I hope that you will come back and join me again very, very soon. But anyway, I need a fresh water. All that talking. And it's probably time for me to start getting dinner on or something. I don't know. There's always something that needs to be done, isn't there?